let's go to the U.S. House race. And Margie, we got a challenger right now. I guess we've got a incoming, Brett Guthrie, been around for a few years, and the challenger, you know him fairly well, Mr. Ron Leach.
Yes, Ron is, he really is a very nice, he's a fine person. He's a veteran of Iraq and of Afghanistan. He was a medic in the Army. He wears a bracelet with the names of buddies killed in those conflicts. And his platform is that he wants to be a voice for working class people. He had worked for legislation to strengthen the family farm rather than funneling all the money toward the big multinational agribusinesses. And he said he's in favor of financial reform to prevent the kind of economic collapse that we had in 2008, 2009, such as the John McCain, Elizabeth Warren version of the Glass-Steagall Act. And that act, excuse me, was separating commercial and investment banking. And the repeal of that in 1999 has helped lead to the debacle we had with the bank collapses.
Okay, well, Robert, we've got Brett Guthrie running. Brett's been he's been in about second, third term now. I mean, he's been in maybe longer than that. That shows how my memory works. So he might have been in there a little longer than that. But I know he's been.
I think he was elected in 2008, and I think that was the last time he was really challenged. And I think a lot of that's because he is more of a moderate, especially in this district. And I don't see this race being all that close at the end of the day, to be honest with you.
All righty, well, let's go down to the state senate. Jimmy Higdon, obviously unopposed, so we'll congratulate Jimmy on the win. So he's going to be. It's kind of hard to lose when you don't have an opponent. So we'll just skip on over to the 50th district state house, and you've got an incumbent, David Floyd, that's been up there for 3 or 4 terms at least. I'm not exactly sure how many terms he's been up there. And tell us a bit about David. His opponent will be Audrey Hayden, and we'll talk about Audrey in just a second.
David was elected in 2004, and some outside groups have graded him as the most constitutional state representative that we have. And he does have some issues that would actually cross party lines. I know that he filed a bill, I think it was, and you can correct me, Gerald Neal from Louisville, to look into the death penalty in Kentucky. And he's worked tirelessly to defend our liberties and to defend our freedoms here in Kentucky, and I think he's got a lot of good support, and I think he's going to be okay.
All right. And Audrey, hadn't Audrey been an attorney here in town for several years?
Yes, she has.
A newcomer to the political scene.
Yes, she is. She attended the Emerge Kentucky. She was part of the Emerge Kentucky program, which helping women to be prepared to run for political office. They don't. Women in general don't necessarily get the pre-training that we get by in some of the activities that might limit them. They don't have experience, so this gives them practical experience and work in learning how to run a campaign. Audrey is very bright. She's very enthusiastic. She's very knowledgeable, and she makes a wonderful candidate. So she's mounting a strong campaign, and I think she'll do very, very well.
Okay. Well, the highest position in the Nelson County, maybe a lot of people may not realize this, the highest elected position in Nelson County is Nelson County Coroner as far as constitutional positions. And Phil Hoagland, he's the Democrat, he'll be running against Neil Claddick, and it's a repeat of the race of a few years ago. And I guess we could talk about, should that even be a political position in the first place? I mean, to me, that's somewhat of a nonpartisan position, because I don't think anybody's going to bury somebody differently or make it. But I don't know. Like I said, how do you defend that race?
Well, I agree with you. I don't personally see it as a partisan position, but our constitutional founders made it so, and so
well, I'll let you
unless we get
mention
changed.
Field. I know we had an ethics decision on him a few weeks ago, and he's been very open about it, and that's something that is that something you think makes a decision a factor in this race?
You never know what's going to be a factor in a race. Everyone has issues to deal with, and I think he's dealt with his very well, and we'll see.
Well, you know Danielle quite well, Robert, and I've known Danielle myself for several years. And I'll let you tell us a little bit about Miss Claddick.
Very bright, very qualified, and she came within, a few hundred votes last time. Time before that, she was farther off. She keeps growing her base. She's her name's out there a lot more than it used to be, and honestly, I can make no prediction. I have no idea how Nelson County voters are going to go in this race. I think it's a toss-up.
I do.
Well, again, that's one of those races that I would argue should be nonpartisan, but they don't. They didn't ask me that when they wrote the Constitution, so they're not taking my input on it. So we'll say it's a partisan race and leave it at that. Leave it to the voters to decide. Nelson County Judge Executive. We got 3 candidates for that now. We got the incumbent Democrat Dean Watts. We got the Republican challenger Dr. Peter Terzop, and an independent running again this time. Ran a few years ago. The former magistrate Tim Hutchins. So. Tell us a bit about Dean in that race. Is that a political race? Do you believe?
Well, yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, it most certainly is a political race. As to whether it should be or not, well, that's another issue you can debate. But Dean has done a great job in office. He has a good reputation, and looking at the race the last time around, which you had identically the same candidates. Dean won with 41% of the vote. Tim Hutchins had 32% of the vote, and Peter Terzop had 27% of the vote. And my prediction is it's going to be around that again.
Well, Dr. Terzop's been, like I say, he's ran before, and we know pretty much where he stands on things. He's what do you predict with Peter?
I predict Peter run really well. I think he'll do a lot better than last time. And if you look at the vote totals from Mr. Watts, garnered 41% of the vote, which is impressive in a 3-way race.
Right.
But if you look at it, from the pessimistic side, as I often look at things, 59% voted against him. So, there's going to be, we're just going to have to look at the issues as they come out, see how Mr. Hutchins positions himself and how Peter positions himself, and we'll see if there's actual, we don't know where the votes are split.
Well, that's exactly my next
no
question.
idea.
With Tim Hutchins in the race, what does that mean for? Is that going to look at the same, split it up again like it did before? As you mentioned, they got 59% of the vote before. So if Tim Hutchins was not in that race, theoretically, those 59% would go to Dr. Terzop. But with Tim in the race, that throws a factor in there that it's hard to predict.
Yeah, and we almost had a 4th. And
that's true.
That would have been very interesting.
Yeah, if Jack Hurst had got in the race, that'd been extremely interesting.
I predict that Peter will do really well. He'll grow his base. He was really new when he came in, and he garnered close to 30% of the vote with a very limited budget. I mean, I think he spent $3,000, something like that, and he didn't have the he didn't have the incumbency behind him that Judge Watts had, and I think Mr. Hutchins spent quite a bit more money than Peter did. So Pete's been out, doing a lot of work the past 4 years, and like I say, we're just going to have to see where the votes fall, and it just, it's in my view, it's anybody's game. It's kind of a 3-way toss-up.
Yeah, the sheriff's race, that looks. It's not an incumbent, but Ed Mattingly is, for many people, they assume he's somewhat the heir apparent after Sheriff Campbell was leaving. Says he'll be running against J.T. Fulkerson. Is J.T. got an uphill battle on with Ed there, or is that? And again, I've argued the same thing on this. It's not really a Republican-Democrat issue. So either way on this, it's pretty much they're very, very similar people.
Yeah, I agree. Law enforcement, especially local law enforcement, probably shouldn't be on a political ticket, but it is.
Yeah.
That's what we're dealt with. JT may surprise people. He's out. He's working hard. He's talking to people. He's talking to people one-on-one. He has he may have an uphill battle to climb and some ground to make up, but we'll see, and time will tell.
Okay. You have any comments on the sheriff's race? Or?
Well, I just think we have a winner in Ed Mattingly. He's a fine officer. He's done remarkable work. He's been steady. He is, to me, seems like an ideal police officer. He sits right up in front of me in church. See him at church every Sunday. So.
All righty. Well, Magistrate District 1. Now, I know Keith Metcalf's been just finished up his first term in office down south of the rivers, we affectionately call it for people down that area. And Keith will be running against David Reed. Now, you know a lot about Keith.
Yes.
I'll let you mention.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Well, Keith's incredibly hardworking. Mm-hmm. He is, I think, very attentive to the problems and to the issues that are dear to the people in his community, because mm-hmm. I keep seeing the Facebook postings of the pictures of this and the pictures of that, and I know that he's very concerned. So he's very gregarious, so everyone he meets is a friend. So I don't see him really having much of a problem, but his district has been redrawn, mm-hmm. so he does have added new people in there, and that may be of some effect. So.
Robert, I don't know David Reed. I mean, you tell us a little bit about David. I've never met the man.
I know him. I'm getting to where I know him really well, and I'm really impressed by him. Very strong constitutionalist, mm-hmm. and to me, in a candidate, that's a plus. I also know Keith a little bit. Mm-hmm. I know his family through some photography I did for his mm-hmm. daughters, and I like Keith. Okay. I like Keith as a person. I would not write David Reed off. He is very hardworking. He's out there. He's working the doors probably right now as we speak, and I have nothing bad at all to say about either candidate, but I think that David Reed is really a dark horse in this race, and I think he's going to surprise people.
Somebody should people take a look at, I suppose.
Especially when you look back at 2010, mm-hmm. Keith and Stephen Howard. That race was sort of tight. It was a 500 vote race. So if you think about 251 people changing their mind, Stephen Howard is the magistrate. Of course, it was an open seat then.
Right.
So, I would not count David Reed out, and I think that he's going, the more he talks to people, the more supporters he's going to gain.
Bernard Ice and Jeff Castle, that's in the 3rd magisterial district, and I think, as Margie alluded to a few minutes ago, the magisterial districts have been redistricted, mm-hmm. redrawn a little bit. So you think Jeff's got a better shot at it with that redistricting, possibly?
Yeah, I do. I don't know Mr. Ice at all. I don't know that I've ever met him, and he may be a fine fellow, and I've got nothing bad to say about him. But I've met Jeff, and Jeff, he's a business owner. Not that naturally qualifies you for it, but he's an entertainer. He gets out, he meets a lot of people. He's very intelligent spoken, and I think that Jeff may also surprise people in District 3. I don't think that this is a race that we can just count the incumbent in.
Okay, and Bernard, I know you've known Bernard for several years.
Yes, Bernard. Well, he's my magistrate.
Uh-huh.
So when I have issues, I bring them up with him. And Bernard's just a wonderful man, family man, always there every time you need to talk to him. He's very accessible. I think that I don't foresee that he's going to have any serious problems